What is going on, everyone, and welcome to this video. My name's Hayden Davidson, and in this video I'm going to talk about Stephen Bartlett. So I had the ultimate privilege to actually go and spend about 2 hours in Stephen Bartlett's flat a couple of weeks ago. I thought that in this video I would explain what I think of Stephen Bartlett, because there's a lot of stuff in the press about Stephen Bartlett. Is he a good guy? Is he genuine? Is he a bit arrogant? I've heard, even someone that I know said to me, I've heard he's a bit of an arsehole. Look, I'm just going to tell you my opinion, okay, what I think of Stephen after actually meeting him in person. I spoke to him for around about 15 minutes in person, one-to-one, when we were at his apartment. There was a couple of other people there as well, but pretty much me and him, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, one-to-one. So I really feel like I got a really good idea and understanding of who he is as a person, rather than what you see on Dragon's Den and what's hyped up in the media, the good news, the bad news, etc. So anyway, stay tuned and let's dive into it. Okay, so Stephen Bartlett. Who is Stephen? So if you don't know who Stephen is, he's worth around, estimates on Google between 60 to 70 million, as he says. As we all know, who knows what his actual net worth is. But he's worth a lot of money. He's been on Dragon's Den. He's on Dragon's Den now. He's in series, what series is it? Maybe 17? I'm not too sure. He's on Dragon's Den now as one of the investors. He's built a company that's worth, God knows, hundreds of million, which he recently exited. He's also the podcast host of Diary of a CEO, which is #1 in the charts, I think, right now, of the UK podcast chart. So he's done quite a lot, okay? He's done quite a lot. But of course, with the fame, there comes the downsides. And the downsides in this case, from which he speaks about quite frequently on his podcast, on social media that I've seen, is the hate that he gets. He does get hate. He gets quite a lot of haters, especially after he did the Diary of a CEO live, which I actually watched. I saw some people just say that it was just all about him, and he was trying to make it all about him, and it was very self-obsessed. I saw some sort of pretty critical reviews about him. I've even had, as I say, someone that I know said, I've heard that he's an arsehole. Apparently, Chinese whispers, go from one person to the next, and then all of a sudden he's cast with these sort of allegations that he's an arsehole, that he's up his own arse, that things like that, and the media start spewing whatever they want to do because it's their platform. So because I actually got an invitation to go and meet him in person, I went and watched behind the scenes of a Diary of a CEO live. If you're interested to find out how I managed to do that, then ask me in the comments below. I might do a video on it if there's enough interest. I thought I would just give my honest opinion, because, as I say, I spoke to him, I met him in person, we got on well as far as I'm aware. So let me give you my take on who I think he is as a person and sort of what we spoke about. Okay, so when I first entered the flat, I was obviously greeted by his I think it was one of, not his PA, but it was someone that was in charge of, managing the podcast and things like that. And there was a lot of people there, actually. There was around about 6 to 7, I think they're mainly female, mainly young girls that were working for him, which is cool, And then we had his producer, Jack, as well. Okay, so me and one other person were sitting in the kitchen, because if you don't know, the podcast is actually in Stephen's flat, okay, in London. So we were sitting in the kitchen watching the podcast. Didn't actually get to greet Stephen when we first went in. I actually spoke to him afterwards. Okay, so we had to watch the podcast, and I think it was Nick Jones, I think his name is. He was the founder of Soho House, so he was actually the guest that was on the podcast at this time. So there was no eye contact with Stephen at this point, and actually when he didn't even acknowledge that we were there, which is fine. He's a busy guy. Maybe he gets a lot of people that come in and view the podcast, so maybe he didn't want to make eye contact because he didn't have time to say hello at that point. But at that point, I think I was thinking to myself, are we even going to get a chance to say hello to him? Is it going to be like a quick picture after the podcast, like, really, really 10-second picture, and then we've got to go? So I was a little bit, skeptical, what was it going to be like? Anyway, so after the podcast finished, we were actually brought round, and I heard someone in the background say, guys, I think it was Stephen's PA, they said, guys, do you want to quickly get a picture with Stephen? Quickly get your pictures, I think it was. So at that point, I thought, felt a bit rushed, and I thought, okay, so maybe it's going to be a really quick in-out picture, 2 seconds, don't really get to speak to him, because I think his PA was, trying to rush him. Busy schedule, I understand. But actually, I didn't welcome him first. He shook hands with the other guy that I was with, and then he saw me, and then we shook hands. And this is where it surprised me. I think a lot of people at this point are probably thinking, you know, oh, typical rich guy. He's probably going to be like, you know, arrogant and rude. And, you know, a lot of the papers have tried to paint him with a particular brush. But look, let me tell you, he was extremely kind. He was extremely caring. He was extremely generous with his time, because I know he's got a tight schedule. He seemed extremely generous with his time. And even to the point where I'm pretty sure now, I can't remember, but I heard his PA or someone explain that they're on a tight schedule. I think someone said the next guest is on his way or something like that, you know, busy schedule. Stephen didn't seem to care. He seemed to try and pay me and the other guy that I was with a lot of attention. And he didn't want to leave us right then. He wanted to give us the time of day. When I was pretty surprised by that, because, you know, compared to someone like Stephen, he didn't know who we were, right? We're not as famous as him, you know, we're not famous at all. So I wasn't expecting him to give us the time of day, but look, he was kind, he was generous, he was lovely. And then actually, we spoke for around about 10 minutes, and I told him that I've been following him for a long time, which I have. You know, I've been a fan of his work, and I've watched Everyday Steve, which is where he used to sort of like get someone to come around and document his life. Someone used to follow him with a camera. I told him that, and he said, "Look, take a seat and sit down on the podcast seat," you know, which was cool. So he seemed to really care. That's what I'm trying to say. And I wasn't sure what he was actually going to be like in real life. I wasn't sure if it was just something that he was just putting on. But being an avid fan, I mean, I feel like I'm quite a good judge of character. And I have been following Stephen for a long time. I've been a fan of him for a long time because I feel like he's a genuine guy, and I can sense that. And I'm glad that I was right, because I think that he was. I don't think you could put on an act the way that he was talking to me, the way the deep conversation that we had, that he actually cared about what I was up to and tried to give me actual advice that I can work on, when I told him that I was interested in sort of producing my own content and, you know, getting known as someone that delivers good content. And he told me, you know, you've got to find the thing, you know, we had a good discussion, you've got to find the thing that you actually want to do. And actually, as we walked out, when I just before I was leaving, I thought, you know, I might not get a chance to ever meet Stephen again, so I'm going to ask him a question, because I saw him say to someone else that interviewed him the other day, if you don't ask, you don't get, pretty much. You know, it's one of the big skills. You've just got to ask. It's one of the big skills good entrepreneurs have got. So I asked him the question. I said, look, for me, right, before I tell you what the question was, I feel like Stephen probably gets people asking him for stuff all the time, pulling his attention, pulling his time. So I asked him if I could just help him with anything. Now, he probably didn't think that I was being genuine. He probably thought that I was just trying to get an in. Probably thought that I was just trying to get an in, and that, you know, I just wanted to sort of annoy him and hang around with him all the time. I actually genuinely wanted to just offer, you know, I don't know what I could offer that he hasn't already got in his resources, but I'll carry his bags. Do you know what I mean? Just so that I could offer something to give back to him, because he's given me so much, you know. And I genuinely left him with that invitation of me just offering to help him with anything he might need help with. But to which point he actually chucked that back on me, right, in a positive way, and he said, look, you know, you're interested in getting producing and stuff like that. Why don't you take you know, Jack, who produces the podcast for him, all the media behind the scenes stuff. Why don't you take Jack's details, Jack's email, and then come up again? I assume that's what he meant. And then you can sort of, you know, shadow Jack, essentially. That's what I think he meant by it. So he actually invited me up again and tried to offer me something back when I was just trying to offer him something. So call that what you want, whether that was like a, you know, a refusal to, you know, if that was an easy way for him to get out of having to have me come up and spend time with him again. I don't think so. I think he just genuinely thought, well, you know, he's tried to offer me something, what can I offer him something? But generally, as I say, and then he left the room after that. He actually walked out the room, and then made sure he made eye contact with me and waved at me on the way out. Okay, now it's little things like that he just doesn't have to do. He you know, I'm once again, we're nobodies to him, you know, and he's a busy schedule. He's got these big guests coming on. The founder of Soho House that came on, and he just acknowledged us, and he just spent time making sure that we remembered coming to see him and having a good time. So overall, genuine guy, kind guy, obviously a busy guy. Obviously he's, you know, obviously he's a busy guy. He's pulled for his attention. I don't expect him to give us loads and loads and loads of time, but the time that we spent together, he was very, very kind, very generous, and I'd love to meet him again. So look, that's my honest opinion of what I think of Stephen Bartlett. I think he's a lovely guy. Okay. So anyway, make sure you like and subscribe to the video, and I will see you in the next.